A blast took place in Japan at the venue of Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's speech. The blast was heard in the western city of Wakayama, where the Japanese Prime Minister was due to give a speech. Now, the smoke bomb had been thrown at the site. Kishida was rushed from the venue after the blast was heard and smoke filled the area. There were no immediate signs of injuries or damage at the scene. Now, Prime Minister Kishida has resumed his campaigning for a lower house by-election for which he is in the city. A person has been detained following the blast. Officials say that the police are investigating the suspect's identity and motive.
Around
11:30 a.m. on 15th of April, when Prime Minister Kishida was visiting a fishing port in Wakayama city to give a speech in support of the House of Representatives by-election, a suspicious object was thrown from the audience. The police arrested the man who threw the suspicious object on the spot. I understand that the police are investigating the suspect's identity, motive and such.
The incident is a big security scare in Japan that comes months after former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was shot at a political campaign event. Abe was shot twice while he was giving a speech in the city of Nara in July last year. He later died in hospital. And for more details on this, we have with us Professor Benoit Hardy-Chartrand, who is an East Asian geopolitics and security analyst and an adjunct professor at the Temple University. Thank you for being with us, Professor. Now, Kishida has resumed campaigning after the smoke bomb that detonated at a venue where he was due to give a speech. One person detained, police investigating that person's identity and motive. What details do you have?
Well, at this point, we don't have many details. It's only a few hours after the incident happened, as was the case last year when former Prime Minister Abe was shot. Details are expected to come in within the next few hours, possibly the next couple of days. But given how high profile, of course, this incident is, given how on the edge people are and politicians are in Japan, I think it's not going to be very long before the authorities, before the police does connect, or does rather communicate some of the detail that they will have found out about the suspect.
Right, and of course, as you mentioned there, this kind of security breach, a big security concern in Japan, especially considering former Prime Minister Abe's assassination last year.
No, absolutely. Last year, when former Prime Minister Abe was assassinated, it was a shock to the whole country, even for people who did not support the Prime Minister. We have to understand that political violence in Japan has not been a regular occurrence. In fact, it has been decades since we had major example or instances of political violence. So that's why when former Prime Minister was killed last year, it came as a major shock, and the most Japanese politicians were expected to, adopt or adapt the way that they campaign in order to reduce the chances of such events, such attacks happening. So now, less than a year after the attack on Abe Shinzo, this attack now on Prime Minister Kishida is going to be, I would say, an additional wake-up call for Japanese politicians. But the way that it was handled seems to have been pretty good so far, based on what we saw, based on the footage that we saw. But of course, it is quite a scare in a country that is certainly not used to this kind of violence.
Right, and Professor, we know that Prime Minister Kishida has resumed campaigning. Has he made any comments on the smoke bomb incident?
Yeah, he did make some comments. A few hours later, he gave another speech in the same city of Wakayama, in which he talked about the necessity for democracy to go forward. And of course, Japan has, embraced democracy fully since 1945. So I don't think that's the kind of event that's going to change anything. I think Japanese people and Japanese politicians are very keen to maintain campaigning as they have done for many years. So yes, his comments were mostly about, related to the necessity to continue to maintain the campaigns. Other high-level politicians as well in the LDP have made important comments about that. So it is for that reason that we have heard a lot of comments about that from politicians in Japan.
Absolutely. Professor, thank you very much for your valued insights and joining us on this broadcast.
Thank you very much.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.